Hey, listen up. We got another episode of Wisecracks featuring the Krack man himself, Bill Krackenberger, and our co-host, John Orlando, straight from Las Vegas. Wisecracks is your ticket inside the world of sports betting with tips, picks, special guests, and more. Only on WSN.com.
Hey everybody, I'm John Orlando, coming to you from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas. You are watching Wisecracks. We've got a huge show today. We got a lot to talk about, and we can't do any of this without the host of our show, Bill Krackenberger. Bill, the Krack man. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, buddy. I'm surprised you made it today. Did you get any sleep after your Dodgers won last night? You know, I know you're a lifelong fan, so tell me how you're feeling. How was Arlington? You were there, so for the people who don't know, being there for the World Series, what an experience! The social distancing, and how did it feel? What was going on there?
It was incredible. I mean, I was at games 4 and 5. Game 4. Arguably, even though it didn't go the way I wanted it to go, in the end, it was arguably one of the best World Series games ever with that insane, they say 2 errors on the play, but I feel like there was like 6 errors on that play. But yeah, it was incredible. Have you been to a World Series game before?
Yes, I went to the Subway Series. I went to a couple, I've been to a couple World Series games. It's fun. Nothing like your game though there. I mean, I can't remember that kind of excitement. I'll go back to the 86 Mets with, a slow roller down the first base side behind the bag and through Buckner's legs. So I haven't had that kind of a feeling since then. It was really exciting. Wow. You were at one of the best World Series games ever.
So, Krack, enough about my sleepless night last night partying for the Dodgers win. I saw on social media you were all dressed to the nines last night in a tux, it looked like. Where were you last night?
Yeah, you're right. Not used to that. I don't even own a tie, never mind a pair of dress shoes. So by the time I got home, I was banged up. I felt like I was out all night partying, and of course, I don't even drink. So, but I'm feeling it today after about 3.5 hours sleep. Circa grand opening. So I was invited to the pre-party at 7 p.m., 7 to midnight, and then, of course, 12:01, the public was invited inside. However, there was still, 10,000 people in here, all the dignitaries and the sports guys and just the who's who of the gambling world and just of the world of politicians and stuff. It was pretty exciting. What a sports book there. Unbelievable. 3-story sports book. Absolutely gorgeous screens. It's going to be like one of my homes. So it was great last night. Got to hang out with a lot of people. I put some great pictures up there on Twitter. And I can't wait to have Derek Stevens on this show. He is just an unbelievable guy. Last night when he was giving his speech, he credited so many other casinos, and he kept on saying, listen, when you come to town, go visit this casino. Don't just visit us. It's all part of being a giant partnership. Great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah.
John, I know you're a big UFC fan, and I'm sure you watched the big fight last weekend. I was actually surprised after it. Am I saying this right? Khabib retired after the fight? He
did. First off, and we'll get into all of my atrocious week last week a little later, but none of my picks panned out. We'll talk about football, my terrible football picks a little later. But I gave out Justin Gaethje's gonna KO Khabib, and I couldn't have been further from the truth. Gaethje didn't look too good. He was swinging haymakers, and Khabib did what Khabib does. And yeah, he laid the gloves down in the octagon and said he's not going to fight anymore.
Wow, that's something. I just think these guys can make someone like him, probably the best grappler in the world. He can make another $10-20 million. Am I right? He can make that kind of money. Like he's just walking away.
For sure. But, it comes down to, can he stay away? I mean, we've seen this before, especially in the fight game, really hard to retire when you're in your prime. I mean, how many athletes have really did it? I mean, in football, Barry Sanders maybe is about the only one that I think that's ever walked away in his prime. And in the fight game, fighters fight. And I think that, obviously I don't know Khabib. I don't know what's going on in his head. And apparently he promised his mother he'd never fight again after this one. But time heals all wounds. He lost his father earlier this year due to COVID. And I don't know what factored into his decisions, but something tells me we will see him again.
Cool. And you know what else I want to get into, John, real quick? Last weekend, it just goes to show you about how you have to shop around for lines. I always say that. I know people like to play with one bookmaker and that's it. But, listen, you have an allergy to money if you do that, because those half points mean a lot. There were some crazy endings last weekend. Atlanta, Detroit, coming down to the end, trying to listen, honestly, if you have to get this line, like before we were talking about this, you have to get the right line at the right time. The market is moving around. So you really shouldn't. Honestly, a lot of these games you shouldn't even lose. At worst, you should push the game. So Atlanta, Detroit was one of them crazy endings. Cincinnati, Cleveland coming down to the end, missing an extra point at the end of the game. By the way, I always say that. Look for those threes, and it's the number one line in the NFL that games fall on is 3. So you could have bought this game to 3. It was minus 3.5. Even there was a couple 4s, but there was plenty of 3.5s. And it just goes to show you how those half points mean everything. Missing an extra point at the end and then winning by 3. Millions, tens of millions of dollars swing, maybe 100 million based on an extra point. Just amazing.
Yeah. And Krack, if we're talking about football from last week, I've got movers coming over today to pack everything up. So I should be moving into your casita. Mortgage the house, take the bills, give the points. When am I going to listen to you? When am I going to start listening?
It's not only listening to me. It's not, listen, they easily, by the way, just to let you know, they were down 10-0. Jets were winning outright 10-0. And they came back with, I think it was 6 field goals, Buffalo, scoring 18 points, winning 18-10. And just to give you an example, that game went down to, people don't know this, at game time at many sports books across this country and in Las Vegas, it was minus 9.5. So even I seen 10s an hour before the game, but there was 9.5 the last 10 minutes. Lots of people on the Jets there taking the points. And just to think, if any of those 6 field goals turned into a touchdown, they cover.
Right.
So listen, it actually could have went either way, but yeah, one of those mortgage your house things is not me, as we know. Honestly, you had a little bit of balls, though. You did take Jacksonville money line, and that's whenever you're taking a 7.5 point favorite, a dog on a money line, that's ballsy. You lost that, and then you lost the Bears.
The Bears,
I believe. Yeah, they were terrible. They're proven now that they shouldn't have been one of the. I think they were 5-0 at one time. But so you had a bad weekend that happens. 0-3, you lost the fight. 0-4, and I don't know. You got to do something different because you're putting people in homeless shelters.
Right. Yeah. Or I'm helping the folks at home. All you got to do is just go the opposite way I go. That's all you got to do to win. I say this sometimes. I hate to talk like this, but it's just as good finding a losing handicapper as it is a winning handicapper. Matter of fact, it may be better. So sorry to, and I don't mean to say that you're. No, it's okay. Yeah. Hey,
it is what it is.
If I could change one life, Bill.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Cool, man.
Hey, all you action junkies, before you place those bets this week, make sure you go over to WSN.com for all the latest odds, lines, and everything else you need to know about. And be sure to check out their NFL Pick'em contest. They're giving away an Amazon gift card valued at $200. So check it out, WSN.com.
I'm a bonus guy, and my life is based on advantages and one of the advantages is promos and bonuses, and WSN will show you and guide you the way to go there. So it's just a great way to boost your bankroll. It's like free money. So if you haven't already went there, do yourself a favor, head over to WSN.com, sign up today. Oh, by the way, I was there again today. Great articles about the industry and what all these different NFL teams that are getting into bed with these sports books. Years ago, the commissioner and stuff, I was on a show on ESPN once, and there was 3 of us on a panel, and I remember the commissioner, this was the previous commissioner, this was 20 years ago, saying that, people really don't bet on the NFL, or there's really no gambling in the stands. It's not really a big part of what we do. Well, hate to say it, if it wasn't for gambling and fantasy and sports books and stuff like this, there probably wouldn't be that much of an NFL. Everyone bets NFL. It is what it is.
Listen, guys, if you want to bet like the Krack, you got to get the Krack Wins app. It's the sports betting Bible in my eyes. I don't always follow it, and I need to, because my bottom line would be doing a lot better if I just followed Krack Wins app. Download it today. Go to the Google Play Store or Apple, whatever device you got, and download the app, and it's got everything you need to know.
Yeah, we had a great week in the NFL again, 4-0. I bet, I still haven't released any sides for the year. I'm a totals guy. So I went 3-0 on totals, 1-0 on props. To be real honest with you, it's so hard to beat NFL, so hard to beat NFL sides. Oh, man. But this year, I'll tell you, the sharp guys, the syndicate groups, when I say syndicate, the gambling syndicates, they have beat up the NFL. It's amazing this year what has happened compared to previous years. Even myself, I really didn't do much NFL. I find myself giving 4 or 5 plays every week, and I appreciate the little plug there for the Krack Wins app and also crackwins.com. Thank you.
Sure thing, man. I think I got my mind right, though, this week. I might surprise you with my picks for this week. We'll get into that a little later in the show. But first, we're going to go to our guest. We have a great guest on the show this week, and we sat down with him a little earlier today, and here's how it went. Krack, my man, we've got such a great guest today. Former LA Chargers team doctor, Dr. David J. Chao is with us.
Yeah, really happy to have him. Longtime team doctor for the Chargers, and looking forward to hearing his take on the NFL injury impact so far this year in the NFL.
He's one of the best at the game, and he knows it all.
Well, thanks for having me, and I hate to come on to your show and thank you for having me, you guys, and make one correction, but I have to make one small correction. It was the San Diego Chargers, now LA Chargers. I'm still in San Diego, and my local San Diego friends will disown me if I don't make that correction. That longtime San Diego Chargers team physician.
Very cool. Well, thanks for taking time out, and we could see you right in the middle of surgeries. Appreciate you taking some time out for us here. So let's start out with these questions, Doc. A lot of fantasy people and sports bettors want to know about the possibility of the return, of McCaffrey on Carolina. Can you tell us a little bit about that ankle injury that happened in week 2 and what to expect out of him for the first few weeks back?
Well, as you know, Krack, I appreciate you having me on. What I do is injury analysis. It's not injury reporting. I mean, we don't take a team saying questionable and saying they're questionable and state the obvious. It's what does questionable mean for this team? What does it mean for this player? And I get a chuckle out of some other people that say, oh, grade 2 MCL, that's 2 to 4 weeks. Well, it depends on the position, depends on the player, depends on the type of running back. And in Christian McCaffrey's case, it also, sorry about the noise.
No problem.
We are in the OR here. In any case, between cases. But in Christian McCaffrey's case, you have to look at the whole picture. He does have a high ankle sprain. And, I do think that if the Panthers were contending for Lombardi, they might have pushed him a little harder. A, Mike Davis is doing very well. B, the last thing they want to do is have any long-term consequences. So, yes, he is back practicing. But look, he's been out since early season. The game of football isn't that easy. I think you are kidding yourself if you think he's going to practice on Tuesday, a little on Wednesday, and then be full go back to himself on Thursday. The game is not that easy. He'll be lucky to suit up this Thursday, and I don't think he will suit up this Thursday. But even if he does, it's not going to be full touches and carries and Christian McCaffrey of old. Even if he could do that with his ankle, you're inviting a hamstring strain. You're inviting something else. So don't count on him for Thursday. Next week, week 9, is the most realistic chance for his return.
Excellent.
Doc, let me ask you this. You spent so much time with the San Diego Chargers, as you pointed out, with one of the best Iron Men in the game, Phillip Rivers. Is it strange to see him in a different uniform? And what was the secret to keeping him healthy for so long?
Well, the secret, it is strange to see him in a different uniform, but then you see him in an interview and you hear a dadgummit come out of his mouth and you go, okay, that sounds normal. That's the way that he is. Look, I've communicated a lot with Philip, even also as he's gotten to Indianapolis. And the secret is Philip Rivers is just that tough, and he wants to play the game. Like, I'll give you 2 examples. Number one, and both these examples I can talk about. The first one is well known. Before that 2008 AFC Championship game, ironically, in the final game in the RCA Dome in Indianapolis, he tore his ACL, right? And we scoped him, fixed his meniscus, and he played in a brace on a torn ACL, right? And what he said to me at the time was, look, I want to play in this game. I said, well, there's risk for you. He goes, look, I don't know when I'll get back to a chance to get to the Super Bowl. And ironically, that's been his only one so far. So his toughness is the number one reason. But there are other reasons too. And he has allowed me to talk about this, so it's not a HIPAA violation. You know, he's broken a number of ribs. There have been lots of rib blocks and intercostal nerve blocks almost on a routine basis on him and others. In my 17 years with the San Diego Chargers, I went back and counted after the unfortunate Tyrod Taylor incident. Probably counted about 100 times that we blocked ribs, and probably the number one leader in the clubhouse for most times with a rib block has been number 17, Philip Rivers, because of exposed ribs and what have you. And part of his streak is that he never missed time when he broke ribs because we would block them and inject them. So hopefully I had this much to do with it, but most of it is just all Philip and what he wants to do.
Wow.
Cool. You know, I'm going to get right into that. You mentioned Tyrod Taylor. So earlier this season, of course, the Chargers starting quarterback, Tyrod Taylor, had his lung accidentally punctured by the team doctor who was giving him treatment for his bruised ribs. How hard or easy is that to do to a patient? And what's the recovery time for something like that?
Well, how hard or easy? I mean, it's not supposed to happen, but it is a known complication. Now, like I said, I did probably about 100 of them across the 17 years, and we never had a single incidence of a punctured lung or dropped lung, but that is absolutely something that you worry about. So, I mean, you know, it's not supposed to happen. I mean, in your world, I mean, let me ask you this question, Krack. Have you ever placed a wager inadvertently on the wrong side, like said it wrong?
100%. I have bet the wrong side for thousands and thousands of dollars. I haven't done it for a couple of years, but I absolutely have done that in the past.
Okay. I would say that's what it is. Okay. You want, like, it's easy to do, but you're not supposed to do it. It's easy to get it wrong. The lung lining is very close to the nerve that you're trying to block, but it's not supposed to happen. I'm not trying to create medicine with betting the wrong line, the wrong side, but yeah, it just comes out of your mouth wrong, or something isn't quite, you know, if you do it enough, it can happen, but it's not supposed to happen.
Cool.
Along those lines of staying healthy and preparing every week to play professional football, I just turned 50, Doc, and I got aches and pains. Is there what do I need to do on a daily basis? I mean, I work out and stuff. Do I need to be? I don't stretch really. How big is stretching? Does that need to be a big part of my game plan from here on out?
Well, I mean, short of getting in that DeLorean for Back to the Future and the time machine, yeah, I mean, yes, low impact activities, higher reps, good form, lower weights, whether it's yoga, whether it's something else, it's less explosiveness, more, you know, to borrow a phrase from the old man of football, Tom Brady, pliability, right? I mean, in terms of flexibility, and some of those exercises are probably more the way to go.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, Doc, another question. We all know about the problems the Jets and Giants have had this season trying to win games, but it seems like they also have some problems with that home field MetLife Stadium turf. Opposing players and coaches have spoken out publicly that they think the field conditions are just horrible. They contributed to some of these injuries too. What are your feelings on this? And do you think the turf is really a big issue here?
Yes and no. Is the glass half full or half empty? Fact, all artificial, well, let's go back to this. Fact, the current sport grass and turf is way better than the old AstroTurf. Okay. However, the current turf and the sport grass at all stadiums are not as safe or as good as natural grass in general. Yes, you can have problems in Houston where the seams were causing injuries of the natural grass pallet field. But in general, here's the analogy. The better the footing, the more likely there is to have a major ankle or knee injury by your foot sticking in the ground. And the analogy is this: if you crank your skis up tight, the bindings, you're more likely to tear your ACL because the ski sticks and there's long torque. If you're a beginner skier, you leave the bindings loose and you pop out of them and you don't hurt yourself. Well, there's no question that grass gives way more than turf. But on the other hand, there are a lot of teams, Saints for example, take advantage of that with better cutting and speed. But that's also why ski racers tighten their bindings, right? They can race faster and do better. So it's a happy medium between the two. All turf in general is stickier and more grabby than grass, which has more give. So in general, they're all a little more dangerous. Is MetLife more dangerous than other turfs? It's anecdotal at this point. This field was in Cleveland for a little bit. And there is some anecdotal evidence that when fields are new and brand new, they're a little bit stickier. So maybe, but the NFL and the NFLPA both have tested it. And, that San Francisco complained about it, but, other teams have played on it and been okay. And the second time the 49ers played, they played the Jets the first time, they complained about it. They played the Giants the next time and they were okay. There really weren't a lot of injuries the next time. So some of that may have had to do with shoe wear, right? Because, remember that game before the Jets, the 49ers had some flight problems. They got in late. And I don't know if that affected their ability to have a walkthrough at the new stadium. And perhaps one of the things you do always for a road team, and I traveled with the San Diego Chargers for 17 years, is if it's a new field, you almost always try and do the walkthrough practice on Saturday at the field. Figure out where the scoreboards are, the clocks, but also the turf and the turf conditions. And who knows? Yes, you can do that pregame, but maybe that had a little bit to do with it too, because there's two sides to that equation in terms of turf, the shoe and the surface.
That's fantastic answer. Fantastic.
Yeah. Dr. Chao, I have suffered, I'm making this all about me. I have suffered from chronic tendonitis in my left forearm for literally about 6 or 7 months now. And my question to you is not what I need to do, but how do players, like when I think about what pro athletes have to go through and how they have to play banged up, obviously major injuries, like you break a bone or something and you're going to have surgery and you're out for an extended time. But how often are these guys playing with these nagging injuries that people don't even realize? When they get on Twitter and they start saying, terrible things about some of their players, they're probably saying it about people that don't even realize how banged up these guys are. Is that a common thing where they're just playing injured week in and week out?
There's no question. And John, since you tossed me a softball there, but I'll let it pass. I'll let it go since we're just meeting for the first time. But in terms of the injuries itself, there's no question. Look, by week 8 here, which is where we are in the NFL, one of my sayings is 85% is a good week. Nobody's 100%. Look, there are minimum of 3 doctors that travel to away games, a minimum of 4 athletic trainers per team, minimum. At home, there's even more doctors and more other people. If you honestly believe that those doctors and athletic trainers are taking care of 2, 3, or 5 guys, as some teams list on their injury report, owners aren't in the business of paying people to do nothing. I mean, it's way busier than that. Now, I'm not saying teams are illegal in what they're saying. You're supposed to put someone on the practice report if they're at risk for missing a game or practice time. But if you're not, and they're, quote, bumps and bruises, that's normal. I remember when I first entered the NFL, I remember Natron Means was our running back. That's how long ago it was with the San Diego Chargers. And remember, he was a little bit Jerome Bettis-like, right? I mean, he was light of foot, but yet he was very powerful. Let me tell you, I learned a lot watching him. Literally after a game on Monday and even on Tuesday, the guy could barely walk every week, and he was never on the injury report. And what's the takeaway message from that? If he carries the ball 20 times in a game, let's say he scores a touchdown or doesn't get hit 3 or 4 times, but he's still taking 15 or 16 shots and breaking tackles. So sometimes on a carry more than one shot. And so he's probably taking 20, 25 hits from probably 8 different players, right? So you have the linebacker hitting him 3 times, the D lineman hitting him 3 times, the D end hitting him 3 times, the safety coming up and crushing him 4 times. So they're able to walk away with 4 contacts. He walked away with 20 or 25. It's no wonder that he's banged up. And remember, football, the other thing I always correct people on, and I do this for semantic reasons, but also educational and clarification reasons. Football is not a contact sport. Basketball is a contact sport. Football is a collision sport, right? And there's a big difference in terms of what that means. And yes, people play banged up all the time, and that is the norm.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Last question from me here, Doc. This past week, 2 veteran wide receivers that haven't played in over, they haven't played in the season, I guess. Both were signed. Antonio Brown to the Tampa Bay Bucks and Des Bryant to the Baltimore Ravens. Do you think guys earlier you said about McCaffrey, so it's probably an easier answer now that we know a little bit what you said. But do you think guys like this are more at risk to injury when they come back? And what kind of things do the NFL, what do they do to get them back in playing shape? I say the NFL, but I guess what I'm saying is like the trainers and stuff, what do they do to get them back into playing shape?
Well, it depends on what shape they come in. And my assumption is they'll come in good shape, but there's a difference between being in good shape and being in football ready, right? If you look at the beginning of this year, what really have we seen? We haven't seen a huge spike in ACL tears per se, but we've seen a lot of soft tissue muscle injuries, right? A lot of hamstrings and quads and calves. Now, that's what happens with acclimation injuries in the early season. So look, in the first 6 weeks, there's acclimation injuries. Now, when training camp is actually 6 weeks long, you can hide a lot of those injuries within the training camp period. When training camp this year is really only 2 or 3 weeks long because of COVID and the delay starts, that's why you had Mike Evans starting the season with a hamstring. That's why you have a lot of these acclimation injuries getting pushed in the regular season. So for an older receiver like Des Bryant and a little bit Antonio Brown as well, you're worried about these muscle injuries and football specific activities if you ramp them up too quickly. And that probably goes on for, like I said, up to 6 weeks, that there's some increased worry. And that's what you have to watch for a little bit.
Very good.
Last question from me, Doc. I'm a big UFC fan, and I've got a handful of friends that always say to me, "Oh, at UFC, it's too violent, it's too dangerous. Those guys they're suffering too many head injuries." And yet these same people that tell me that are big time football fans. So could you settle the debate I have with some of my friends? Which is worse if you had to rank them in terms of injury risk to the body? Is it football or is it combat sports?
Well, I've been asked that question a lot in a lot of different ways. I remember one year the San Diego Chargers were doing training camp up in LA at the Home Depot Center at the time. And the X Games were there at the same time. And I was the chief medical officer for the X Games, as well as, so in the morning it was Chargers, in the afternoon it was X Games, in the evening afternoon was Chargers again, in the evening it was X Games again. And the X Games athletes would be saying about the Charger or the football players, "Oh, they're huge. It's unbelievable what they do." And then the football players would be saying, "It's unbelievable what these guys do." And I'll answer you in a similar way that I answered that question. For the X Games, a successful play is someone rides away or walks away. In football, a successful play is someone's tackled and hit. The goal of every play is contact. The goal of every play in X Games is you roll away. But then when you do land awkwardly or fall off your motorcycle or your bike or your skateboard, you potentially are hurt worse. So for combat sports, like, yes, the goal is you get hit kind of thing. But I've also been, but the bottom line is it's different. It's in combat sports, you know where the danger is coming from, and hopefully you can protect yourself, right? In football, how many times are you injured? Friendly fire, by the pile, on the backside. You don't even know it's coming. A blindside hit. This is why interceptions are exceptionally dangerous plays. Why? Because instead of a running back knowing where the people are coming from, if you're the guy intercepting the ball, look at the Baker Mayfield play where he tore his ACL and J.C. Treader injured his knee on the same play. You're out of position. You're doing things you're not usually doing, and people are coming at you from 360 degrees. So, UFC, at least you know where your opponent is, but obviously it's very deadly. But the interesting thing is, in terms of what's more dangerous too, it's different danger. But how often does a boxer fight, Bill?
Yeah, no, not like
how
the old
often
days.
does UFC fight, right?
Yeah.
So what does that tell
right.
you about recovery, right? I mean, UFC
the old
fights
days
a lot
they used
more
to
often.
fight. The old days they used to fight every weekend. Every weekend they would have a fight back in the early, 1920s and 30s. Now they fight twice a year. I mean, absolutely right. Oh, great to have you. Great questions and answers there. I love that question, John Anson. Love your answer too. And Doc, we talked about this a little bit. Listen, we are a gambling show a little bit here, so we talked about this yesterday, and I was actually fascinated by some of the things you were telling me. The Giants played the Eagles about a week and a half ago, and the line went from 6-3 and then from 3 to 4.5. You just, I love how you're all over top of this, and you're having a great season. So I want you to tell the viewers where to find you. Where do we find you, and where do we find your picks? John's gonna love this. He didn't know about this. You actually pick games every week. Tell John your record. He's gonna be really excited.
Well, I just fell into it. I've been writing for Outkick, and I've picked 5 games every Sunday, and it published Sunday morning, and you can look it up at Outkick. And it's based on injury advantages, not based on anything else. My assumption is the scheme and the talent and everything else is baked into the line. But some of the unknown injury issues are not. So at the website, profootballdoc.com, I have a field view, which lays it out, and an injury index that grades it. And so I would pick games based on the mismatches in terms of injuries. I remember before the Dolphins-Jets game, this is before everyone realized how bad the Jets were. I was like, really? The Dolphins? And I'm going to lay 10 for the Dolphins. I mean, who would have thought that? But I said, look, I have to stay consistent to our injury formula. And that was the easiest cover of the week. So the record so far, this last week was a loser, has been 4-1, 4-1, 4-1, 3-1-1, 4-1, 3-2, and this last week was 1-4. So we're 23, 11-1, and it's published at Outkick. And I've just been picking the Sunday games. But here's the thing: I just do injury stuff, and the hope is that we can marry the worlds. For example, if you love a team or a total, and my injury information fits that, maybe it makes you go stronger. If you're on the borderline, it might change your mind. Or if it goes against it, you may look at it and go, no, I still think it's going to be okay, which is okay with me. I'm not a tout. But the one thing that we talked about, and I'd love for all your listeners to join profootballdoc.com. It's free. We got a seed round of investment, and you'll see it. And I'd love for you guys to tweet at me at profootballdoc, all your listeners, your comments, or email support@profootballdoc.com, what you like and don't like. But instead of just picking games, look, if you're a fantasy guy and you're deciding between 2 running backs, why don't you look at the health of the run defense on the opposite side? Okay. If you're looking at, for the Cowboys, here's what I said. Their offensive line this last week, everyone was concentrating on Dak Prescott, but their offensive line got really banged up, including Zach Martin, which meant all 5 of the guys on the offensive line had injuries. Both tackles were out on injured reserve. The center is out. The left guard is coming off Connor Williams an ACL and not 100%. Now Zach Martin is out with a concussion. And if you just look at scheme, you'd say, well, the Cowboys have been scoring a lot of points and successful, and, Andy Dalton isn't that bad, right? However, if you look at the offensive line and you factor in, is Andy Dalton as mobile and on the run as Dak Prescott? Not close. I mean, he's better than Phillip Rivers, my buddy, but he's not Dak Prescott. So is anyone surprised the Cowboys have stunk it up since then? It's not just the difference between Dak and Andy Dalton. It's the difference between what he's got to work with in the offensive line and how that player can cope with it. And what you were talking about, Krack, is, last week, the Eagles opened at 3.5, and I saw it even go to 7. And it was on news that Miles Sanders and Zach Ertz weren't going to play. But I could have told you that on Sunday when it was at 3, right? And
wow.
3.5. And then it went to 7-6, whatever it is, depending on the place that you got. Then I could have told you, it started at 7-6 and then it went the other way, whatever. But in any case, see, I made the mistake myself. But in any case, then the line went back up to 4.5 because I said earlier in the week, Deshaun Jackson's coming back, and so is Lane Johnson for that Thursday game. And so the other thing that we're headed towards, and I'd love for your guys' comment on this and to use the site, and I'll come back on and talk about it if you will have me, and talk about where it's right and wrong. But instead of buying points, if you market time it correctly, based on knowing the injury information that's coming, you don't necessarily need to buy that half point. You can get it based on market timing a lot of times, because a lot of the reaction is due to injury news. And if you know that ahead of time, that's the potential advantage.
Brilliant.
Great market timing. I love that. That's very important to someone like me. And again, so it's profootballdoc.com. Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome. Looking forward to go there, and all our guys go there. Excellent. We really appreciate having you on, and you proved to be one of my favorite guests here. Thanks, Doc.
100%. Krack, I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I hate betting the spread. I got sucked into it last week, and we know how that worked out for me. I'm moving into your house. But yeah, all right, let's put that in the rearview mirror, and let's focus on this week. I got a couple games I picked out. I want to see what your thoughts are on them. The Chiefs are at home this week against the Jets. Listen, I know you say the under is the way to go as far as the lines getting adjusted. But in this case, I'm taking Mahomes and the Chiefs. And I'll take the over because I feel like the Chiefs can put up 52 by themselves. I mean, this guy lights it up on fire. So I'm thinking at the over is 48 and a half, right? I'm thinking the Chiefs throw up 52 by themselves this week. What do you think, Krack?
I'll tell you, John, I actually agree with you a little. I really didn't bet it, but I mean, I do agree with you on this one. The game opened up 48. It's now 49. The Jets actually play a little bit of defense last week, like I said earlier about against the Bills, allowing only 18 points. But the Chiefs, meanwhile, put up 43 against the Broncos. So, while I do lean to the over, I'd be a little afraid of taking the Chiefs with, maybe they have a big lead and kind of taking the air out of the ball in the late stages of the game. But I want to tell you something else, John, that I never talk about on any show: correlated parlays. I would like to see if the sports books will take this weekend this kind of a game. Normally, they wouldn't take, like, let's try the Chiefs first half. Let's try a first half bet. Chiefs and over. I guarantee you that some of the sports books will not take that correlated parlay because it's built into the line. If the Chiefs are going to cover, 10 points in the first, I really don't know the first half line, but if they cover 10 points, that means they're 10 points already into going over. So it's kind of a correlation. When a line gets this big, a lot of times they will not take correlated parlays. So I did this in college football for the last 30 years, and I've actually been thrown out of a lot of sports books and cut off for betting correlated parlays.
Okay. Let me move on to my other game I got here for you. Chargers at the Broncos. Krack, listen to me. The Broncos, they play defense, okay? I'm taking the under in this game. The Chargers did earn my respect last week. I said some not so nice things about them, but they spanked up the Bears pretty good. But I think the combo of the Broncos defense and the fact that the Broncos have trouble scoring, I'm taking the under on this one. Okay.
Hey, listen. Wow, John, 2 episodes in and you're already sharpening up. Game opened at 46, has now went down to 44. So the Broncos offense have really struggled, and there's a real concern in Denver as to whether Drew Lock is the answer to be the quarterback there. Chargers defense didn't look good against Jacksonville either last week. So maybe I expect them to bounce back a little bit. I think this could be close, low scoring game.
Okay. Next game, Steelers versus the Ravens. I want to get this one right so bad because I think I'll get some street cred with our listeners. They beat me up on Twitter a little bit. You came to my defense, but I'm going to prove I'm not just some court jester here or a carnival barker, just saying stuff into the crowd. Okay. Take the Steelers and the points. I know there's an old saying. I'm not sure if it's a saying, but it should be. In Ben, we trust. I trust Big Ben. Okay.
Well, hey, again, I don't know what to say here, John. What's going on? Again, you're on the sharp side of the game again.
I got my mind right.
Yeah, this game opened up Steelers plus 5.5, by the way, and got hit right away from a sharp group. It's now down to 3.5 as the money is just came in on Pittsburgh left and right. Baltimore's coming off a bye, and the Steelers had a hard-fought win versus the Titans, as we know, almost blowing that game after that big lead. So the hook is probably the key here, and the hook, I mean, is half a point, especially on a key number of 3.5. However, if this game goes down to 3, or if you can get a 3, I don't know. I may be enticed to take the Ravens here, but I'm not saying that. I think you're on the sharp side of the game right now. We're going to see what's happening more towards the game time when we. I love closing lines, so I like to see what the lines, 20 minutes before kickoff.
Okay. Krack, we offered up to our fans and listeners to head over to Twitter and ask us some questions. And we got some interesting questions this week. I want to read some of them to you and get what your take is. Okay. This one came in from David D. He asks, what role of having no home field advantage is having on the players and teams visiting and home teams? For instance, Seattle's the toughest place for a visiting team to hear because the fans are so loud. So without the noise of the fans, does playing in Seattle become less intimidating?
Well, David, I guess that was his name, right?
Yep.
This is a gambling show, so I assume you mean the impact of the lines. As we've discussed, teams have been scoring at a record pace this season. I attribute some of that to the road quarterbacks feeling more comfortable with audibles and changing plays and et cetera. The lack of fans and the intimidation factor being minimized certainly helps the road teams too. So good question, though. Thanks.
Next question comes to us from Jack Weiss from across the pond. He's over there in the UK. Okay, we're reaching the UK. Okay, Krack, we're global now. Okay, Jack wants to know, he says, why does a 60-minute game take nearly 4 hours to play with only 11 minutes of actual ball time? Penalties, timeouts, clock stops, incompletions, out of bounds, etc.
Yeah, no, that's really true. You're right. And listen, I'm sure he's used to the football that they have across the pond, where the ball never stops. The ball never stops. So here we score a lot more points, of course, than the soccer games and like they call it football. Again, we have penalties, timeouts, clock stops, incompletions, out of bounds, halftime, commercials. Commercials are big. Don't forget the NFL. Listen, it's a money machine in the end, and they need those commercials and all this money coming in here and there and joining these other sports books across the country. I won't be taking up any collections for anyone in the NFL anytime soon.
All right, fair enough. Our last question comes to us from back east. Clearly, this is a New Yorker. Vic Conti asks us, should the Giants stick with Daniel Jones or draft a new quarterback? What should they do, Krack?
Well, that's a tough question, but it's a very interesting one. The Giants brass went out on a limb to draft Jones 6th in the draft. They're not apt to give up on him so quickly. So unless they fire the GM, and then all bets are off, of course. If they do continue to struggle, though, and end up getting the first pick in the draft, they can get like Trevor Lawrence. Then they will likely say adios to Mr. Jones.
All right. Very good. Listen out there, everybody listening, if you've got a question only the Krack can answer, we want to hear from you. Hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or in the YouTube comments section for this show. Be sure to download the Krack Wins app. All you gamblers out there, get that app. It should be your sports betting Bible. Okay. You need this in your life, guys. If you want to learn how to bet like the Krack man, then you got to go and download the app. It's available on Google Play or Apple. Go get the app and start winning more money today.
What a combination there. What an exacta. The Krack Wins app and WSN.com. Wow.
Right? Krack, we did it again, man. The clock is ticking down to 0.
Cool.
This went by too quick.
Yeah, great guest, and I hope some people out there listen and to what he had to say, and hopefully we can all make money. In the end, it's all about making money. So I'm glad we came to the end of this one, and some good tips and good nuggets of information. Great job, John.
Thanks, man. Listen, I have an idea. Let's do this again next week.
All right. We'll be there with a great guest also we're trying to get for next week. A giant guest. I haven't even talked about it yet. Hopefully we get him in here.
All right. Sounds good.